Welcome to another webinar in the Starting with Marketing webinar series. If you are new here, which not a lot of you are, because most of you are actually returning, which is fantastic to see. What we do here is we have a nice little casual conversation with someone who's an expert in a marketing channel to, on the one hand, learn from other marketeers, something we don't always get the chance because most webinars are very salesy. And on the other hand, I think it is wonderful that so many of the agencies and freelancers and marketeers that I work with, they all have their different philosophies on how they work and how they approach different marketing channels. And through a webinar like this, where these people talk about how they approach these marketing channels, you really get to see how their philosophies are shaped, what is important to them, what works for them, and why they do certain things differently than you might do. This could be a different situation. It could be different results. There's no one right way to do marketing. And so to hear all these different ways of how you could do it is very exciting. Today, we are joined by my good friend Vlad. Vlad and I go way further back than either of us wants to acknowledge, because that means that we are getting old. Vlad is replacing Joe today. Joe unfortunately had a situation that came up, which meant that he did not have the opportunity to take the time and energy to teach you all about how he deals with how he does AEO, GEO, AI visibility, however you want to call it, for his clients through Reddit. And fortunately, Vlad was willing to step up and take his place. Vlad will tell all about this, about how he uses Reddit for AI visibility later. But certainly I could say that Vlad is a fantastic replacement, and he was on my list of people to talk to anyway. So then I think the only thing to do is, Vlad, why not you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Dirk. Thank you so much for having me. Let me share my screen and just to myself a proper introduction. And so, guys, my name is Vlad. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Qvery.ai, and at Qvery, we have software that measures AI engine visibility. And it's basically a pretty new category of software tools. You might have heard of Be Profound. We're basically in the same category. I have been doing SEO, marketing, leading GTM in multiple SaaS companies for more than a decade now. And historically, I've always specialized in making SaaS brands discoverable in AI search. In the past 2-3 years through my consultancy, we deeply specialized in AI search, and then a year ago I co-founded Qvery. Today's webinar is basically going to be all about using Reddit for AI engine optimization. So we're not going to be talking about Reddit ads, because Reddit ads want to help you anyhow with the AI engine optimization. I was thinking, Dirk, I could take the guys through a couple of slides. That will probably take like 15 to 20 minutes tops, and then we could have a conversation, and feel free to interrupt me at any point.
Let's do that. I do want to invite everyone to ask questions in the chat, so that we make sure that everyone gets answers, because I'm sure some people are here specifically to ask 1 or 2 questions, and then they can solve that little bottleneck that they might be having.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got my chat open just in front of me, so feel free to ask questions or interrupt at any point. We're a small group here, so it will be easy for me to switch between different topics. And before we talk about Reddit, I just want to cover a couple of basics, right? So, like, what should we do to rank in the AI search engines, and generally, how does AI engine optimization work? And look, it's very important that you know the difference between the traditional search engines and AI search engines. In the traditional search engines, we were searching for keywords, right? And then you had the blue links, and you were clicking on the blue links, and to search for stuff, you were generally using short keyword phrases. BAS, CRM, software. That was just the way, to search for stuff. You were searching for a keyword, the blue link, you click a number of blue links, you create your short list, then you go ahead and, for example, request a demo or buy something. In the AI search engines, you use queries, right? So like the terminology here changes. You use queries, I call them prompts. And and I mean, different people search differently. So I, for example, use voice search. So most of my searches are very, very long and very, very detailed because I know that I'm going to get better answers. AI search is probabilistic, not deterministic. So thus, like, many people would say, hey, I searched the same thing multiple times and I get completely different search results. That is the case. So on average, the variability somewhere between 50%. So you could literally search the same query from the same IP address multiple times and you would get completely different answers, or answers that are 50% different. Now, I'm saying that it's probabilistic because if you search the same thing from different IP addresses multiple times, statistically, you start seeing patterns, right? That's why in order to measure the visibility in AI search, you need basically volume of data, and I'll cover it in the next couple of slides, like a little bit more in depth. The other difference between traditional search and AI search is that AI search personalizes based on your conversation history, based on the language that you're searching in, and based on your location or IP address. So you could be searching for the same thing. I mean, I'm based in Chile, so I could be searching for the same thing from my home address in English and in Spanish, and I will get completely different answers. Because depending on the language, the LLM is going to look at different sources. It's also important to understand how the AI search engines work. I mean, ultimately, there are different AI search engines, right? So ChatGPT, Google AI mode, you might be using Gemini, you might be using Claude, they're all different systems and they work differently. And they're not just like different because, well, it's a different name. They're actually different because they look at different sources. Again, we'll cover this more in depth, but for example, the differences are that ChatGPT loves Wikipedia. ChatGPT looks at Wikipedia every single time. You ask it a question, it goes to Wikipedia, fetches content from Wikipedia, gives you the answer. Google AI mode does not even go to Wikipedia. It already knows everything that's on Wikipedia. On the other hand, Google AI mode loves YouTube because it has access to all the transcripts and all the internal data on YouTube. So if you're creating content on YouTube, it will help you to rank better on the Google AI mode. Well, it will not help you on ChatGPT, for example, because ChatGPT hates YouTube. And so sort of like the different AI search engines, they're different not just because they're called differently. They're also different because they work fundamentally differently and they look at different sources. Now, it's also important for you to understand how exactly AI search engines or LLMs come up with brand or product recommendations or answers generally, right? There is so every LLM is trained with some data, right? That's like the training data set. If you ask a very simple question or something that is general knowledge, so questions about history and biology and whatnot, it will likely give you answer very, very fast, and it definitely will not have to search the web to come up with an answer because it's a well-known fact. And most of the LLMs know pretty much everything about like general disciplines. However, if you ask it a relatively something that requires information like recent information or something that is relatively subjective, like for example, what is the best microphone that I should buy to run webinars, right? It is very likely that the AI search engine where you're searching for this is going to perform a web search and then go to different places around the web, fetch information, fetch prices, and then give you the answer. This whole process of like LLM searching around the web in order to come up with an answer is called query fan out. Very technical term. Basically what query fan out means, and it's actually quite fascinating. So you search for something like, what is the best microphone for webinars? In traditional search, traditional Google would be like, well, these are the top 10 blue links for what are the best webinars. Out of these blue links, you have like 2 shitty affiliate articles and maybe a Reddit post and maybe a couple of like pages for like where to buy a webinar. I mean, the microphone, the microphone, depending on where you live. What ChatGPT would do, ChatGPT would take this query, right? What is the best microphone for webinars? And would break it down into a couple of hundred of different queries. What are the cheapest microphones for running webinars? What are like reviews of microphones for running webinars? And there would be a couple of dozen up to 100 of different queries. That whole process is called query fan out. So it takes the core query, then it fans it out into multiple different queries, then it picks the best queries, then it searches for, am I still sharing my screen? I'm not yet.
No, because I think people prefer to look at you than a very simple rectangle.
No problem. Good.
But you can obviously put it back on, but this is also easier for either you or me to turn this into a video. However, I obviously did interrupt you because of this. So, I kind of ruined this one, but the next ones will be good.
No, it's fine. It's good. And there's one thing that I will want to share down the road, but I'll check
exactly.
Share later. So yeah, I mean, so ultimately about like the whole query fan out thingy. And what's important for you to know is that it's not that simple. So basically, what is happening behind the scenes is that AI search engines look at dozens of search results for different queries, and then they pick the best sources of information, and they come up with an answer. And they also customize this answer based on your conversation history. So from that perspective, AI search is a lot more advanced than traditional search used to be, because traditional search pretty much doesn't exist anymore. Like, it's dead. Google is now full-on powered by Google AI overviews that go straight into Google AI mode. So I mean, we can say that all search is AI-driven by now. It's a lot more complex. It also provides better answers. I mean, ultimately for us as users, it's a really good thing. Now, the reality is that optimizing for AI search engines and optimizing for this new search is very different than it used to be, right? Than optimizing for traditional search used to be. With traditional search, it was relatively straightforward. Have a great website, create really good content, build links, traffic is going to grow, and you will be successful. You will sell your microphones or your software or your hair products or whatever else, right? With AI search, it's not that simple. So here I'm going to go back to the screen sharing mode, because I think it's going to be helpful. Just for a second. So I mean, the optimizing for AI search engines basically boils down to three things. It's your own website, which is still super important. Your own website, basically your opportunity to influence the conversation and the narrative in your industry, right? So like, your own website is an opportunity to tell the AI search engines what your brand is all about, how it's different, and what you think about the industry, what you think about the competitors, and basically about your space. So having a great website and creating great content is still very important. Now, creating great content means a very different thing now. You need to create content with high percentage of information gain. You need to create content that is unique, that the AI search engines would actually use as citations. Then the third party mentions what other websites, what other people say about your brand, right? So reviews on platforms like G2, for example, Capterra, mentions in the external listicles. These are all super important. And the third thing, UGC mentions, right? And Reddit in particular is a single most important citation source on the web, and basically a single most important website on the internet. The only industry, I mean, there might be different niche spaces, but the only like larger industry where Reddit is not number one UGC citation source on the search engines is travel, because there are sometimes for some companies TripAdvisor is a little bit more important than Reddit, and even in travel that is not necessarily the case. Reddit is oftentimes number one and TripAdvisor is number two. For every other industry and niche that we have analyzed and that we have seen, Reddit is consistently, literally number one citation source on the AI search engines. It is also the only citation source that is equally important for ChatGPT and Google AI mode, which are really the only two AI search engines that you should really care about. Claude is obviously also great, especially for professional users, but usage-wise, Claude is tiny versus ChatGPT and Google AI mode. Google AI mode is basically all Google.
So would you then say that here, like from your experience, you would say that Google AI and ChatGPT is where people look for information, and Claude is a lot more, hey, I want to create, and so there, it's less important to optimize for Claude because it's just used by a different group of people for a different purpose.
Yeah, Claude is a lot more advanced. So, I mean, most Claude users are on average more advanced than ChatGPT users, Google AI mode users on Claude. I mean, it's a whole different topic, right? I mean, it's Claude. Claude is generally like more prevalent, I'd say, among like top 2-3% most AI native users or people out there, professionals out there. So Claude would be important, for example, if you're targeting like C-level and advanced technological companies. Yes, but you cannot like specifically optimize for Claude also, because their algos are very different, right? And also the user base is a lot smaller. So when talking about like the general AI engine optimization, you should really care about only two AI search engines: ChatGPT and Google AI Mode. And Google AI Mode is powered by Gemini, so it's basically the same thing. And few people would search in Gemini anyway. And Google AI Mode is the future of Google search, and Google is huge, obviously. So that's why. Hope it makes sense. So this is kind of like, all the background. This like brings us into the Reddit conversation. Okay, well, so I just wanted to basically to say that, hey, Reddit is really important. Now, this is 1 week, a week old research from the guys from Profound. Profound is a company in the same industry as same niche as Qvery. I might say they're our competitors, but really, I mean, I'm a huge fan. These guys started building a couple of months earlier than us. They're already at $1 billion valuation, raised a ton of money, and they have a lot more money than Qvery, because of Qvery were bootstrapping for data research. And so these guys are saying that, yeah, I mean, a number of findings from this research. So first of all, Reddit is back at the first place with 8.5% of all ChatGPT citations on average, right? So that is across all the industries. And I'll show you in a second, but what I have seen across different industries, that in the software space, for example, Reddit is closer to 30% on average. So the 8.5 is like on average across all the industries. For some industries, you would have numbers like 20 or 30% of all the citations, which is huge. The second thing is that ChatGPT basically fan outs with Reddit in the Qvery fan outs. So you can read through this post. I will actually drop you a link, all right? And I would also recommend following Josh on LinkedIn if you want to see these updates. More often, follow me as well. I post similar stuff just based on query data. But basically, so what's happening is that ChatGPT is adding Reddit specifically in the fan out queries, and it's literally like searching for information on Reddit to come up with product recommendations. And the number of these fan outs also grew from like negligible percentage to 3.68%. Anyway, you can read through the whole post, but yeah, I mean, by the way, that is important too. So at the end of March, Reddit was responsible for 2.1% of citations on average. Right now, it's 8.5. So there has never been a better time to do marketing on Reddit, or to be on Reddit, or to think of Reddit as a marketing channel for your brand than now. I mean, the ROI now is at its peak. So that is just to say that Reddit is super important. Now, yeah, I'm gonna stop screen sharing, and now we're gonna have the conversation about, okay, well, great. So we have established that Reddit is really important. We know that ChatGPT, Google AI Mode are pulling data directly from Reddit. So what do I do? How do I leverage Reddit to rank higher in the AI search engines? Well, it's actually easier said than done. And Reddit in the recent couple of months, Reddit has been very proactive about tightening its security measures and fighting spam traffic and bot traffic, which is great. I mean, ultimately good for everyone, for the Reddit community, right? And quite frankly, Reddit is a channel that is extremely hard to manipulate. So if you should not be trying to play whack-a-mole game with Reddit. You should not be spamming subreddits. I'm gonna things like I'm gonna go and create 10 new accounts and I'm gonna use them to spam all the subreddits that are related to my brand. Don't even try doing this. Just a waste of time. It will not work. And it's Reddit is smart enough to figure out that these are bots, that this is basically spam, and it will ban your accounts. So how do you do Reddit how do you increase your visibility on Reddit with an end goal of growing your visibility on the AI search engines? You guys are gonna hate me, but the answer is build something great and make sure that your customers are really vocal about it. And it's like build great products and they will come, right? But so that's part of it, really. And if you have a good product, it's very likely that you will be getting positive reviews on Reddit. But it also depends on your industry, right? So some of the companies that we're working with, Qvery, for example, they're getting a ton of positive mentions on Reddit and negative mentions on Reddit. In which case it's not really about like creating spammy Reddit to create mentions. It is more about understanding which threads are more important and also monitoring Reddit proactively to know where they should go and engage with these people, right? Now let me show you how we surface this at Qvery and what you could do with Qvery data. So this is the Qvery demo account that was set up for Canva here, for example. In Canva's case, Reddit is responsible for 35% of all the citations, not 8.5 like average across all the industries. So the data that Qvery, for example, surfaces is, and you can get the same data from Profound, for example, is the data on which threads are most important on Reddit in terms of citation weight, right? So on Qvery, you can get the data on like which threads are most important, and then you can open these threads and see, actually, this one was removed by the Reddit filters. Good stuff. It's still index, which happens a lot, by the way. Any alternatives to it will be Express, right? And then if we search for Canva's brand, you can see how exactly Canva is mentioned and how many times, right? Canva, someone says Canva here. I'm currently using Canva. So if you were doing marketing for Canva through Qvery, you would be able to understand which Reddit conversations are most important. Then you would be able to go to these conversations and proactively engage with people in comments, for example, and try and influence the conversation, right? So I'm not saying spam Reddit or mention your brand. I'm saying understand how people are talking about your brand on Reddit and engage with the conversation, in a productive and ethical way, which is exactly what Linda, for example, was asking about, right? The other thing is, the other strategy generally to do Reddit, to do marketing on Reddit in a genuine and organic and ethical way is to have your own subreddit. And then you would be able to see whether the threads on your own subreddit are showing up on Qvery and whether these threads have any citation weight. And this way you would also be able to kind of like channel the conversation. And many companies have this issue of like people posting negative threads on Reddit because their customer support is bad. So if your customer support is effective and works well, that's half of the solution, basically, because if people get their problem solved, they will not go on Reddit to post negative stuff about your brand. But also you could use Reddit as a customer support channel. So having your own subreddit is also a really good idea, because then instead of going to random subreddit, these folks will go to your own subreddit, post an answer, and you would be easily able to identify to see this thread and then engage with it. Before I go on, any questions, or like in which direction do you want to stir this conversation, Dirk?
All right, because this is interesting. Because the thing is that I think that for the people that are today in the audience, they want to be able to know what do I need to, what's my next task in order to rank, like be suggested more often by AI search engines. So what I would like to know is like really what is the stuff that you do or you would advise someone to do when they get started? Is it and so that's one question. And the other question is, what is it actually that you do in order to be suggested by an AI search engine? Because right now I'm a little lost. As you say, okay, thanks to Qvery, you can see which threads, etc., have been used to generate answers by these search engines. But then you so that's stuff that already exists. And then you say, okay, now it's time to interact with these people. How is that going to increase the number of times that I am suggested as a brand?
Right. So a couple of things. Let's break it down, Dirk.
Exactly.
So first of all, if you believe that Reddit is an important customer acquisition channel for your brand, and also if you see on Qvery, for example, so you could use Qvery to literally measure the citation weight of Reddit in your industry for the queries that you're tracking. If you see that Reddit is like 20-30%, so obviously it's super important.
It becomes legit. Yeah, that's time to get into Reddit.
Exactly. So Qvery gives you the insights, right? I mean, Qvery ultimately is visibility tracking tool. Qvery will not create the visibility for you on Reddit. It just gives you the insights on like what's important. So you see that Reddit is 35% for Canva, for example. And you also, the data that you get from Qvery is like which threads are important, right? So what kind of content does well on the AI search engines for our industry? So you can go and check out these articles, these Reddit posts, Reddit threads, and you can see what kind of discussions are happening, what kind of things people are asking about, and you can start seeing patterns, like why ChatGPT is preferring these threads. The stuff that we're building at Qvery was the Qvery Assistant. We're also building a direct connector to Reddit that basically can fetch content from Reddit through the API. So not post anything for you, but just analyze data on Reddit. So you can ask, for example, hey, can you fetch... Actually, I'm not sure if it's going to work because we were testing it on dev, but should. Top 10.
Fortunately, we're amongst friends.
Can you fetch top 10 Reddit threads by citation weight and surface patterns, for example? So the feature that I'm looking at right now is the Qvery Assistant, which is basically like an AI assistant inside of Qvery that has access to all the Qvery data. So it can query the citation database, like all the data in your Qvery account, and it can analyze it. And one of the things that we're adding right now is the support for Reddit API. So the Qvery Assistant could basically like fetch every single comment from the top Reddit threads by the citation weight, and then analyze, for example, what are the patterns, or what kind of topics people are surfacing, right? Or what is the sentiment about each brand? So from that perspective, you should think about Qvery as a like intelligence layer, right? So like without Qvery, you're just running blind. Like how do you even know which threads on Reddit are important for the AI search engines? With Qvery, you know this exactly. So that's the first step, like measuring it, right? And if you see that Reddit is really important, you should go ahead and start your brand subreddit, definitely. And that would, that will allow your customers to be, would be able to easily find you on Reddit. You could also post your product updates there. You could also create content, create meaningful conversations, start building your Reddit community, right? Then third of all, if you know that Reddit is important, it's a really good idea to have branded, real, genuine accounts. A really good example is Tim from a company called Ahrefs. They do SEO software. So Tim, for example, has been on Reddit for 16 years, has not gotten his account banned because he's smart and he's not spamming on just anywhere. And he's engaging with meaningful conversations on Reddit. Most of his posts are actually on Ahrefs subreddit. Ahrefs is the company of which is CMO, sorry. And he's, for example, also replying or commenting on different subreddits, like big SEO, right? So he's, for example, asking questions and he's engaging with the community in a meaningful way. you see that he has contributed 224 times and he has quite a lot of karma. So that is a really good example of like, hey, we're on Reddit. Tim represents a really well-known brand. He could have spent his days spamming Reddit and just saying and screaming from rooftops, Ahrefs is the best. He's not doing that. Instead, he engages with the community in a meaningful way, which basically builds credibility, and also in the long run helps Ahrefs be mentioned more on Reddit, be perceived better as a brand, and also obviously increases their AI visibility. So with Reddit, I mean, it's a tough channel because frankly, there are no shortcuts. And as I mentioned, like just like going and spamming Reddit with your brand mentions is really not a great idea. You could also incentivize your real customers to go on Reddit and leave positive reviews. So you could treat Reddit as TripAdvisor for your brand, for example. You could, instead of asking your customers to go on G2, you could literally ask your customers, hey, could you please go on Reddit and like leave a positive review about our brand somewhere? Or you could say, hey, you could just like even mentioning it to your customer might be enough for them to be more proactive about it, because they would know that it matters for you and they would be willing to help.
So if I summarize this, and so please correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
So we use Qvery first to figure out, okay, which threads are important. You do the community management, and the community management do a better brand perception because you interact with people who use your product, so that's always great. So let's go back to Amy. Amy has her hair products. People have commented about how fantastic the hair products are. Someone, however, did lose all of their hair because they were being very irresponsible with the product.
Like me.
Exactly. However, that's not because of Amy's hair products, I believe.
No.
Nevertheless, so you do the community management so that your brand is being favored, if people perceive it more favorably, you would have an increase in brand mentions, plus the positive story around it, which means that there are more opportunities for an AI to use that information for whenever someone asks for the question, what would be the perfect hair product for me?
Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, Amy could also go ahead and use Qvery to identify like most important threads on Reddit, most relevant threads on Reddit, and then go ahead and like actually mention the hair products that Amy is promoting, or like, I mean, the hair products that Amy is trying to sell. But instead of saying, hey, these products are the best, Amy could actually post like an educated review, an educated opinion of why these hair products are good, like genuinely.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like doesn't mean that you cannot mention your own product on Reddit, as long as you do it in a legit way. And as long as Amy also builds up reputation and karma in the right subreddits, it's not, as long as it doesn't come across as spammy and salesy and does not breach the terms and conditions of Reddit. That is the genuine, like the ethical way of doing Reddit marketing and, promoting your brand on Reddit, basically participating in the community and adding value.
So let's then say that in the fictional situation that not everyone is already using Amy's hair products, and therefore there are no brand mentions. But Amy is very proactive, and so she already started with her own branded subreddit, because she attended the first webinar where we already told people to get a branded account, perhaps start with the subreddit. So Amy's proactive, as I said. So Amy's starting, and she's going to share, the long road to funding a company that in the very competitive hair product market. And she's sharing all of the research that they did in order to create the perfect hair product. Would this early start already be something that could be picked up by an AI, or would we need a certain amount of upvotes? Do we need to have a certain amount of time before it could even be indexed, to use SEO terms? If you're really starting from scratch, what does the world look like?
Yeah, so from that perspective, the tools like Qvery are really important, because AI, like, it's really hard to predict what kind of Reddit threads are going to do well on or what kind of Reddit content is going to do well on the search engines, right? And also there are going to be differences between ChatGPT and Google AI mode. So unless you're using Qvery or a similar tool, you will never know what kind of content does well on Reddit. That's why you need it. And second of all, there are certain like patterns and truths about Reddit. One pattern is that Reddit generally prefers fresh content. So someone creates, let's say in an imaginary scenario, someone creates a thread on Reddit. What are the best hair products for XYZ? On let's say hair care subreddit, and then there's a big discussion, like 50 comments, and this post starts ranking high in terms of citation weight on ChatGPT. ChatGPT is using this post to come up with recommendations all the time. 2 months pass, and then someone else creates an identical post, obviously written slightly differently. What are the best hair products for XYZ? Just like a new thread completely. And again, it goes, it gets lots of uploads. Again, there is a fresh convo, but like 2 months have passed and certain new brands have appeared and something has changed in the industry. The discussion and the conversation is going to be obviously very different. The consensus perhaps is also going to be different. What is going to happen is that ChatGPT is going to drop the old thread and start using the new one. So for us as marketers, it's also important to understand like the whole notion of like freshness of content. So it might be in Amy's, for example, interest to create a fresh conversation on Reddit, maybe even start this conversation herself. Hey, what are the best products about something? And then participate in the conversation was the whole intention of like, so it's not about manipulating Reddit. It's more like adding value to the community by starting a fresh convo. And because Amy knows that the consensus is going to be different versus, the existing thread, which is like relatively old, where that is currently doing really well on the AI search engines. So that's like the whole point of creating new content and adding value to the community, was the whole intention of like replacing and outranking the old sources of information on Reddit.
And if I understand it correctly, because an AI would never use a Reddit post that had one comment, two upvotes, because there's just so much more content out there to be used in order to generate an answer, you would need to have something that breaches a certain threshold, to put it like this. And so you would use an analytics tool in order to figure out what the trends are of the type of posts that are being used to generate these answers. And so that allows you to then also reply and create content that a AI would pick up, because it would also breach this threshold of now it has enough social cues or social proof that it's also worthy to use this as opposed to a Wikipedia article or something.
Exactly. Yeah, it is actually like pretty straightforward. So I mean, LLMs definitely prefer Reddit posts that have more upvotes. They definitely prefer Reddit posts that have more comments. They definitely prefer Reddit posts where there is no consensus, where people are fighting in comments, because they're more interesting, right? And that's the whole thing about AI, is that, I mean, it's actually smart, right? So like it's very hard to manipulate. AI, what you ask for a product recommendation to in an AI search engine will actually go to the bottom of this and compare different sources and come up with really good recommendations that are also based on your personal conversation history. So ultimately, the way to rank on the AI search engines and the way to get your brand also mentioned on the AI search engines more is to be everywhere, be mentioned everywhere, and be mentioned positively, because you can be mentioned everywhere, but it's people talking negatively about your brand. And then it's even worse than not being mentioned at all, because it might be, because first of all, you will not get recommended. So like being mentioned in different places, but the mentions are negative, the AI search engines will not recommend you. And then the probability of getting recommended, also goes down. So it's sort of like you need to be mentioned everywhere. You need to be mentioned in a positive light. And it's the same thing with Reddit. So it's like for us as marketers, it's just important to understand that Reddit is not going anywhere. Reddit will continue. Reddit is doing really well from our perspective, and they're definitely doing it right. So kudos to Ollie and the broader Reddit team. They're fighting spam, they're fighting bots, and they're tightening their rules, which is great for us as consumers, and for us as marketers. Ultimately, the best way to be on Reddit, to be visible on Reddit, is just creating great products, delivering great services, but also being proactive about being part of Reddit community. So it's not about like hacking Reddit. It's really about just participating in the Reddit community in a genuine and ethical way. which basically gives you an opportunity to change the narrative in your favor.
So what I find so horribly interesting about this is that when I started my first job, my internship was doing community management, and what I learned afterwards when I started to have my first real job was that people did not really value community management because it was something that you would let an intern do. Because indeed, who really stinks so bad at being a human that they cannot have a conversation when they also work in marketing? And so what is happening now is that CEOs value AI visibility like crazy, but in the end, an enormously large part of it is just community management. And what we see now also from, like the comment that Amy just dropped in the chat about, look, it is actually a lot harder than it seems because she wants to be active in these beauty and hair subreddits, but they seem to hate brand associated accounts. So clearly it is, you can still be waging an uphill battle, even though it is merely community management.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about Reddit too. I mean, Reddit, the Reddit is notorious for like people hating spam, hating marketing, hating brand associated accounts. So that's kind of that's part of it.
Do you have a solution?
Engaging as a person, as not necessarily a brand affiliate account, not promoting your brand, but adding value. If being part of the community, right? So it could be a brand associated account talking about something else and then their brand. That's the solution, really. And then once you have credibility on the subreddit, you will eventually find opportunities to start talking about your brand in an ethical, like genuine way. There is unfortunately there is no shortcuts there.
That's also the difficult thing of having a branded account, because you would not intuitively start by either just engaging in the community, especially also just try and suggest to your CMO, hey, do you mind if for the next 4 days, I'm just going to be posting memes on different subreddits about hair care, and just be nice and just support people and say, oh, I'm so happy that your glow up looks amazing, etc., etc. As you can hear from my voice and my terminology, I am not, and my face, I am not big on outwardly appearance. I occasionally try hard with a nice shirt that I ironed. That's my level. I also live in Bavaria, where no one takes their appearance seriously, so that is half the reason. But it's difficult to suggest this stuff because it doesn't feel like it will pay off, because in marketing we are so focused on, especially since digital marketing came about, it needs to have instant gratification. Like the CMO and the CEO and the RevOps guy or girl instantly needs to have gratification of, okay, I spent 500 euros on ads a day and I made 1,000 euros, or whichever currency of your choosing. We have a very international audience here. We have rupees, we have dollars, we have who knows, dirhams.
Yeah, Linda is asking here if we have any experience using top posters, commenters for specific subreddits to create engaging threads to comments that rank on the search engines. I personally do not have experience with this. I'm also relatively certain that any such partnerships might be just removed as spam by the subreddit.
It's also terms and conditions. Unfortunately, Davis mentioned that all of this stuff needs to at least be mentioned that it is a partnership, and then I feel like a comment would already kind of defeat the purpose. If you have to start with, this is sponsored by XYZ, I love their product. Yeah, obviously that is a bit too blunt, but
exactly.
Don't think that would work. Even I know, especially in Germany, which if you are active in Europe, that is the market you want to be in. You need to be super careful with this stuff, because even they make examples out of certain entrepreneurs, and it is really stupid, and it's just not worth the hassle of getting caught, essentially.
Yeah, so probably not a great idea.
But obviously that doesn't mean that there aren't any possibilities to work together, but it just needs to be well thought through. And that is the problem with all things with community management. Just like I said earlier, like you come up with this fantastic idea, but because there's so much investment up front and the payoff at the end is so unclear, it is very difficult to find someone who is willing to give you the budget and the time in order to really dive into this. It's probably the same issue that a lot of people had when influencer marketing became a thing in the very beginning. So probably it's a fantastic idea, Linda, but you do need to prepare a very good pitch, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Do we have a response from Oliver from Reddit? That would be fun to hear if he's still here and listening instead of having this on in the background while he's doing his dishes or something. What is our opinion on AMAs on Reddit? Is it relevant for AI search?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. And the AMS is a fantastic content format, right? There is so some subreddits specifically are doing AMS, others don't. So it's something that needs to be coordinated with the moderators of a specific subreddit, and obviously it's generally very, very helpful. Where AMS can be very interesting and very valuable is for specifically for influencers or like people who are running their companies under their personal brand, because that is also a huge thing, right? I mean, like, for example, investment professionals, influencers, coaches, and whatnot, people like whose company is literally their own personal brand. Creating an AMA creates a very strong positive footprint about you as a person, as a professional, right? It's a really good way to contribute to the Reddit community and potentially a ton of valuable content that can be picked up by the AI search engines. So every time someone would say, "Hey, should I trust this coach or should I trust this person in terms of like stocks recommendations or something else?" The ChatGPT Google AI mode will definitely pick up this AMA thread where they're talking about this, and will likely kind of like come up with a recommendation or an answer that that takes this AMA thread into account. So that's a really good question and probably a really good idea.
Do you see a lot of AMAs whenever you use Qvery to see how your clients' brands are doing, as those being cited?
I don't. I definitely don't. I think perhaps not enough subreddits are doing AMAs. And I totally agree with Oliver. That's probably like the best thing that you could do on Reddit.
Oh, absolutely.
But it would be weird, for example, for Canva to do an AMA. What is the best software design software? AMA, right? It needs to be like a co-founder of Canva, for example, doing an AMA about something that is like genuinely within his domain expertise, right? So sort of like you can only use AMAs to an extent, and I think that they work better better in some industries, for example, like for personal brands versus in other industries.
I also just think that AMAs are just super fun anyway, and I think that they are an undervalued way to engage with the hardcore base of fans. And especially if you are a nice person, then usually it isn't too difficult to have a nice conversation and occasionally say something witty, especially if you have a marketing team around you who can help you reply to a few comments.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Then let's see. I have my questions answered. There was just one thing, actually. I wanted to know, when is a company big enough? How do you kind of know what the opportunity is for AI visibility? Because with SEO, we would just look at, okay, how often is a certain keyword searched for? How do we know with AI visibility how do we know when the opportunity is big enough for me to pitch this to my CMO or to the CEO and say, look, we need to take this seriously?
This is a really good question. So there's a concept in marketing called double jeopardy, and it really goes back to like 70s, and it's a very academic concept. The double jeopardy in marketing has no connection to like killing someone and then you can't be sued for this a second time. Not like the movie. The double jeopardy in marketing really refers to the fact that what it says is that the brands with a higher market share also have higher customer loyalty. So the bigger you are, the more loyal your customers are, right? This, for example, has to do with Coca-Cola.
Okay.
Coca-Cola, the buying brand of soda, you're very likely to pick a different brand of soda next time. Now, I wrote an article about double jeopardy in relation to AI search on Qvery's blog, like 2 months ago, more or less. And basically, what I argued in that article, I can send you a link so you guys can check it out.
I'm on it. You just tell people what the summary is of the article.
Yeah. So the summary of the article is that I was arguing in that article that AI search, that AI search engines democratize search to an extent because they're a lot more likely to recommend niche products. And they're a lot more likely to recommend products that are specifically good for you and not necessarily established brands. And it was a very speculative article just in general. And funnily enough, a professor of University of Urban Illinois reached out to me on LinkedIn, and turns out that he's been researching the topic of double jeopardy for the past 20 or 30 years. And we had a very nice chat, and now we're working on an academic paper that's going to go that's going to be published in their academic journal that researches this topic deeply. So it's a bit of like a hobby project of mine. I'm enjoying it a lot. And we've done some research, and turns out that this is true. It turns out that so we were looking at the brands of refrigerators, of sneakers, and something else. And we did like a higher size, larger size statistical sample. It turns out that AI search is more likely to recommend niche brands than traditional search. And turns out that AI search is also recommending more niche brands if a query is more detailed. So the consequence of this, and to answer your question, Derek, it's a really good thing for small companies. So basically, the answer is, even if you are a very small company, you should be investing into AI search, and their results and ROI are likely to come faster than with traditional search, because with traditional search, you had to break into this top 10 results, right? Remember the stats, like second page of Google, no one goes there.
Mm-hmm.
Like dead land. If you're number 11 on Google, doesn't matter if you're number 11 or number 99, you're still not visible. Now, Oliver, and with AI search, that is not the case, right? You could be a very small brand, but you could be servicing a very small niche audience, and you would still be discoverable. And it's a lot more likely that AI search engines will be recommending your brand. So from that perspective, again, for us as marketers, it's a really good thing, and it's a really good thing for consumers as well, because they will more likely to be recommended niche brands that serve their specific needs.
I could also see that actually being a reflection of the people who made the AI engines. Because for the longest time, we've been building all of these SaaS tools, and all of the engineers have been working for these type of tools, where indeed it was all about, one action that someone makes through that tool, and then just be the best at this, and winner takes all type of stuff. And these are also people who indeed are very peculiar about the tools that they use, the things that they like, etc. And a small niche thing is going to be that only specializes in one thing is going to be the thing you want to suggest, because it is the best. It might not be something that everyone wants to use. I do road cycling, and what I would suggest for myself is very different from what I would suggest for my wife or the people across the street, because those people do not do 200 kilometers in one journey. So you need something very different. But that is very interesting. But we don't have any easy ways to show numbers so that a CEO could instantly just be like, all right, awesome, we are now doing AI visibility.
I mean, the easiest way to get started with AI engine optimization is to sign up for a tool like Qvery, quite frankly, because that allows you to at least establish a benchmark. Because I mean, Googling it or searching it yourself on ChatGPT is not going to give you a good answer, because the search is probabilistic. So you need to search for it 50 times to really know if you're visible or not from different IPs. So that's why the best way to get started is just to start measuring it. And once you start measuring it, you can start figuring out how to start growing your visibility and share of voice. But I mean, what you were saying, Derek, like that's exactly true. So the reality is that the fact that AI search engines are more likely to recommend niche brands is really good for smaller companies, because it means that AI engine optimization is for any business, for any company, and it's easy to get started, and the ROI will come faster.
That is fantastic. I think with that, we might have the first edition where we stay within the time limit. So if there are no burning questions, because obviously we don't want anyone having a question burning in their pocket, because that could lead to wounds, then we are going to close things up. And I want to thank everyone for joining. No
Awesome.
one in the chat acting. That is awesome. So I first want to thank Vlad for joining in and taking Joe's spot with a day notice. So thank you very much, Vlad.
Thank you for having me, Derek.
And thanks everyone for joining today. For the people who now follow us on LinkedIn, for the people who, is my internet slow? My internet might be slow because I am frozen here. Let's close some things. Am I moving, yes or no?
Nope, that's okay.
That is indeed fantastic. Yes, so all right, so for the last little bit, thank you also for the people who have now joined our next webinar for next week, same time, about Reddit ads. And yeah, as always, please also like, share, comment on posts, LinkedIn posts, YouTube videos, whatever, because it helps us grow these webinars and do more fun things and help people with their marketing questions. So thank you all, and hope to see you guys next week.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Derek.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.